I can't believe I overlooked it for the first part of my career. Only work with people that you like. Right?
That's good. I've had the experience of a team of Tom Brady's. Sometimes values don't align. So you have to make the decision, like, how do I get rid of a star player because they don't share the same values?
Wait, hold up. There's more at stake here than just, fun, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like these guys have chosen to be here every day to provide for their families.
The reason why most businesses fail is the CEO becomes...
Welcome to the Unconventional Leadership Podcast, where we help you unlock your potential as a leader. Hey, can I ask you a favor? Can you please hit subscribe or follow on any platform that you're listening or watching this episode? Our goal is to connect with you, to bring additional value to you, to bring additional topics to you, and we can do that more effectively if you hit subscribe or follow. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining this week's episode of the Unconventional Leadership Podcast. Today, you're in for a real treat. There's some people excited about this episode already who have been texting me this morning. Let me know. I hope this goes well, and it will go well. So today, I'm with John Spence and Michael Ragsdale. Thank you both for being here.
Yeah,
Appreciate you joining me.
My pleasure to be here with you.
And we're going to talk about all things, of course, leadership and unconventional leadership. And you're going to hear some of those unconventional stories come out as we discuss the storylines that we're going to cover today, as well as entrepreneurship and how fun and how grueling it can be, and relationships, friendships, having the right circles around you to support what you're doing, and how that always seems to line up right when we need it. So, fellas, thanks for joining this dialogue.
It's great to be
Should
here with
be
you.
good. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. So both of you have had two incredible careers, and you might even say, "Oh yeah, we have. We've had successes and we've had challenges, and we're all going through that real time." Even in the preparation, we were talking about the journeys that we go through and what we learn from those journeys that make us stronger for the future. Is there any foundation of what, if you look right now at your approach to life? How has that approach to life, full picture, changed today versus what you might have been thinking 10, 15, 20 years ago?
I bet you have some good responses for that.
Yeah, I'm happy to share first. Right. So I sold a company, and I worked really hard in my 20s and 30s, and sold the company in my early 40s, right? And so now I'm starting another company, right? And I built another company from, one location to 23 locations. We sold it, and now I'm working on my third location of this business. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that. But there's a completely different approach to how you do it the second time around. I mean, one thing is you don't have to prove yourself, right? Like you can put your ego aside, right? So that's more fun. But two, and I think we've talked about this before. You're a big reader. After I sold my last business, I read Ray Dalio's book, Principles, right? So I was like, why didn't I have principles established for, what I needed to do when I was building a business, right? So I read his book, and he's got some wonderful principles in it, but he encourages you, as you read the book, to develop your own set of principles, right? And I've got a few, but one that I can't believe I overlooked it for the first part of my career. Only work with people that you like. Right?
That's good.
So like that goes back to like putting your ego aside, when you're building a business for the second time, but also choosing the people that you work with, right? And I work with just such great guys that are just so motivated. And when I think about my last career versus what I'm doing now, it's just so much more fun because the people that I'm choosing to be with every day are just wonderful people. And I had these experiences with the last time where I had some star performers, some guys that were just, big revenue generators, but not the kind of guys that I would ever invite to a party at my house, right? I wouldn't go on a ski trip with them or something like that, right? Just, very, like you see that with a lot of, top performers, right? Different personality types, which is great because I like some of those guys, but some of those guys, I don't want to work with them anymore. Right.
Yeah.
So the second time is we're only picking, I say we, because I've got a couple of business partners. We're only picking people that we really enjoy working with every day.
Yeah.
I think that's critical, and also values. You didn't say it, but I'm wondering how much of that has to do with, like, I've had the experience of like a team of Tom Brady's. And when you have a talent pool like that, sometimes values don't align. And so you have to make the decision, like, how do I get rid of a star player because they don't share the same values? And to me, now looking back, you always stick with the values. It doesn't matter how well that person performs. If they're not the type of person that you want to work with, you don't work with them. Just plain and simple. Because at the end of the day, if you don't share the same values, you got one person going one way while you're trying to go and take the team the other way.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much of that kind of resonates with what you're saying.
Oh, no question. I mean, Mike, I think that's one of the reasons that you like these guys, right? Because you have this shared set of values.
Right.
And we wear them, of course, every organization has core values. A lot of people design them, put them in a drawer, and never look at them again. Ours are featured prominently, both in our minds and inside of our physical locations, right? And we talk about them constantly, right? But we have these shared values, and part of it is what binds us together is, and that's, you like those people.
Yeah.
Funny thing about life, we like people that have the same kind of values that we have.
That's right.
Absolutely.
And not that, like, some of the guys that didn't have the same values, one guy on my team, he went on huge success. But while we were working on stuff, he was always talking about all this other stuff that could be done, and then he went and did that. And there's no problem with that. We just it wasn't a right fit. And he ended up going on to do, I'd argue bigger and better things, which, I love that. So it's not like, if you don't have my values, then it's like a contention that we have, but it's like, we're just not a good fit.
Yeah.
The other thing is when we were building a business the first time, we're very financially, fiscally conscious all the time, right? Because I can still tell you what I made like the first year. My paycheck was the same every week. It was $353.25, $353.25, right? And Mike, my business partner, Mike, and I would look at our envelope, and this is back before we had even direct deposit. And we would look at the envelope and go, "What's in here this week?" And we both know it's $353.25, right? But you've got a startup company and you're sacrificing everything. You put your life in a situation where, you don't need a whole lot to survive, and you spend, 60, 70, 80 hours a week working, right? This time around, we pay ourselves much better,
Nice.
right? And you also don't need to be stressed constantly about it, which frees up a big part of your mind for creativity.
Yes.
And you're not worried about money all the time,
Wow.
right? And also, that goes back to the earlier conversation, like having some of these star performers that maybe you don't resonate with, they don't share that value set with you. You need them because they produce revenue for you as a company, and you're so tied to the financial success. Not even success, but the financial viability. Like,
Right.
can we make this?
Right.
Can we just keep this thing floating for another couple of months?
Yeah.
Right.
That's
Oh,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah, people don't always like to talk about that, but yeah, running a business, you have to care about that because you're responsible for people's lives. I mean, people depend on that paycheck, and if it's not viable, then what are you doing?
You're very right about that. When I think I matured as a business person, when I looked around, and we've been running our first business for a few years, and I looked around, and some of the guys that we'd hired when they were, just out of school, now they had families. They had wives, and they had, one kid at home, another kid on the way. And then you realize, wait, hold on, there's more at stake here
Yes.
than just,
Yes.
fun, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like these guys have chosen to be here every day to provide for their families. So it gives a little bit more gravity to every decision that you make.
Yes, that's
That's a
huge.
big part of how our family has viewed our businesses the last 50 plus years, of the impact you have, not just on the employee who shows up every day or shows up virtually or in person every day and is working hard. It's, you've got an entire ecosystem. So one of our values is that humans matter. Like,
Yeah,
people
that's
really
great.
matter. which isn't just the person that's on your team, it's their entire system. And that comes into how we try to flex with our team to be there for them, as a whole family, not just an individual, as long as we're delivering with results and we're showing up and we're being accountable and we're committing and we're executing with excellence, which are other parts of our values, right? Then there's a lot more flex to support the whole unit as you need to support your family. Yes, it's financial, but it's also emotional. There's a lot of workplaces that just don't do that.
Right.
They really could care less what's going on in your other world. And that's we talk about it a lot on the Unconventional Leadership podcast about the whole self. Most companies do not want you to bring your whole self. Please don't do that. Don't bring that here. Versus no, I have found when you do and people are authentic about it, then you get their whole self to show up from an accountability and delivery standpoint too.
That's exactly right.
They show up differently because they feel protected. They're not watching their back. They know that we're all in it for each other as well as the greater ecosystem, and then aligning those values to why we're all here. We're here for this mission. This is the mission we're trying to attack in the world and change, in our case, change the way the world leads others and leads themselves. And when you're all on that same mission, it makes it a whole lot easier versus consistently people bringing up high performers that aren't aligned can also bring things up that just doesn't fit here, right? We don't need that here.
Yeah,
Stop bringing it up because we're not going to do that. That's not what we're trying to execute. And I'm sure both of you have felt that tension.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And listen, those people that you step up for and you're there in ways that a traditional employer wouldn't be there for them, they don't forget about that stuff.
Right.
No, they do not.
I'm just thinking of a guy that works with us right now, and he lost his father recently, suddenly, right? And we went to the visitation. Like every member of my team was there for
That's
him.
cool.
He needed a little extra time off. Of course, understand. Take as much time as you need, like whatever. And you can see it when you spend time with him, like how important that was for him. Like we showed up for him, did some extra stuff, and just showed him love, right? And you can see it in his eyes. You can see it in the conversation. You can see it in the creativity and in the meetings. How he really wants to contribute, because now he probably always did look at this as more than just a job. But I mean, for sure now this is an extension of his family.
Yeah, that's awesome. Most hiring processes are broken. You spend months searching, waste time on wrong fit candidates, and still end up uncertain if you made the right choice. Our 4C recruiting process has been refined over 50 years placing executives. We look at character, culture, chemistry, and competency. This systematic approach ensures we find leaders who don't just have the right skills, but who truly bring the right value to achieve your organization's vision and mission. Let's take the guesswork out of hiring. Visit centenniallink.com to learn how the 4C recruiting process can help you find your next great hire. So let's do this. I'm going to because both of your businesses are also incredible stories in and of themselves. We could spend hours talking about the great, awesome things you all are trying to accomplish. But let's talk a little bit about origin story. So you're the CEO and founder of Bailout Systems.
Yeah.
Talk us through what was the origin story that got you into this game, and what is it? What are you trying to accomplish? What are you trying to achieve?
So I was a Navy diver for 20 years in the military, and then in Honolulu, Pearl Harbor. I was stationed in Pearl Harbor, and every day I'd be on the dive side talking about I want to make products. I was reading all these books on success and wealth and how do you become successful? And for some reason, I was always like a creator, a tinkerer. And so I wanted to create products and I want to learn how to do it. So on one of my leaves, I came back to Cincinnati, went to the University of Cincinnati, sat with a director there and told him what I wanted to do. He's like, oh, well, you need to go into DAP. And I thought, well, that's fashion. I didn't know they did industrial design and all this other stuff. I was like, look at the way I'm dressed. You actually think that would be a good fit for me? And he laughed. He said, no, you want to do industrial design. They teach you how to make products. And I was like, sign me up for that. He's like, well, hold on. You don't just get into DAP. You got to apply and it's pretty stringent. I was like, I'll get in. I knew right when he described that program to me, I was like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
I applied. The only reason I got in, I think it was because I was the token military. They wanted to see, like, I wonder if we can take this knuckle dragger and, teach him how to do stuff, draw. I had to learn all that stuff. And then through that program, my best friend Archie, he became a firefighter for Covington, and he told me an event called Black Sunday, where a whole team of firefighters, 6 New York City firefighters, jumped 4 stories from a building, and 3 of them died, and 3 sustained lifelong injuries. And he's like, you should take your experience, and instead of drawing toasters at DAP, you should come up with a device that we could take into a fire that's small, compact, and would lower us out of a fire. So I took that on, didn't realize what I was jumping into. My ego at the time was pretty big. I thought I could do anything, and started on that in 2013 over Christmas holiday. I was down in the basement of DAP tinkering, and now it is 13 years later, we developed the world's smallest hands-free rappelling device.
Wow.
And that was not because of me. That was because I had and was able to attract this talent and people who were on the same page as me. Like, most of my team is people who climb. They do risky things. Like Alex, my engineer, he does slacklining. He's working on the world record for blindfold slacklining. Ian, incredible climber, my creative director, unbelievable. So that's what I mean by finding and attracting the talent and people who are aligned with what you do. And these guys have worked for free.
Wow.
Because as a startup, we couldn't always, get the financial funding to do it. And these guys believed so much in what I wanted to do that they said, we don't care. We love this, and we're going to make this happen. So
how long did it take from 2013 for you to build MVP prototype to the time you were actually using your device to rappel down the Karoo Tower?
I think 7 years. And I had an engineer from MIT and another engineer who's got over 55 patents to his name. And
wow.
and they struggled for 3 years just to get something that worked. I mean, this technology, we had to, it's not like most startups where you start with something known. This was like brand new territory. We're trying to figure out the technology, and it took that long. And the funding just isn't always there for hardware. People don't like to fund, scientific research, R&D. So,
okay. John, in your case, walk me through the 2 organizations. You built one, sold, and now you have your second that you're building. Share with us what those 2 businesses were.
Sure. So I'm originally from Minnesota, and right out of college, I started working for this consulting company that did consulting for small market fitness centers all across the country. And the founder of that company, my boss, he actually went on to start a franchise called Anytime Fitness. So
heard of that.
So I was working. This gentleman's name was Chuck Ryan. So Chuck, he had this marketing company, and he and his business partner, they came up with this idea for a key card access club, 24 hours. They were the first guys to do it, and because I'd had this relationship with Chuck back in 2001, 2002, when they started that company, I was in his Rolodex at the time, and he dialed me up and said, hey, you need to look at this model. So I was living in Cincinnati at the time.
Okay.
Flew up to Minnesota, spent Thanksgiving with my family, and stopped by Chuck's office, looked at the business model. And back in 2003, I signed a franchise agreement. And then over the course of about 15 years, went from one location, the first one in this area, the first one in the tri-state. Now they have like 6,000 locations worldwide, right?
Wow.
It's huge.
Yeah. They're, this is always fascinating to me. In the history of franchising, only 10 brands have made it to 30 countries, and Anytime Fitness is now, I think, in 40 countries.
Oh,
wow.
Right? Yeah.
So, it's wild what they did with that, and for us to be part of it when they're growing. But I did that for 15 years, and we went from one location in Lawrenceburg, Indiana, to 23 locations when we sold that. At the time when we sold it, there was a lot of interest in health and wellness and private equity. So for whatever reason, they were doing all these roll-ups with fitness centers, and the company that ultimately ended up owning our collection of 23 locations, now operates, I think, 250 of them. Right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we did that for 15 years, and gosh, we just made so many mistakes, had so much fun, and had ups and downs. Nothing like small business to make you feel like you're on a roller coaster, right, every day. Right? Like one day you feel like you're king of the world, and the next day you're are we going to lose it all, right? So we went on that roller coaster ride for 15 years, and then we sold that, and I was in my 40s when we sold it. So I was like, it's not like we're going to retire, right? What are we going to do? So we started a consulting business just to basically pay the bills and have some fun and stay engaged in that network for a few years. And then somebody gave me a book, and the book was called Spark. And Spark was written by this guy named Dr. John Rady. And he had put together all of these, he didn't do any primary research on his own, but what he did was he curated all of these different studies about the impact of exercise on the brain. And I bought copies for two of my good friends, Adam and Mike, who are my business partners now. And I said, guys, you got to check this out. This is wild. This is, the impact is profound, right? So we all read this, and at the time we were still operating one fitness center. So we started to run the first of its kind program in the United States, where we were measuring things like processing speed, executive function, reaction time, and we were incorporating them into an exercise program. And we had about 20 participants that did it over the course of about 12 weeks at this one fitness center that we had. And, we found a company that you could do a very quick assessment and see how well their executive function. Audiologists use this. The machine that we used at the time was called CogniView, and you'd spin these two little dials on it, and they were able to determine your processing speed, reaction time, and some various parts of executive function, visual spatial awareness. So we don't use that machine anymore, but to get us where we needed to go and to be able to have a way to measure cognition in people, it was a great starting point. So we measured people at the beginning of this, we measured people at the end of it, and we only had people in our study that were over 60 years old, people that were worried about their long-term cognitive function, because a lot of them had seen somebody in their life suffer from age-related cognitive decline, right? And they knew enough to know that there are some things that you can do, right, to stave off this decline that many of us will see. But they didn't know, what they needed to do. So they came to us for coaching. They saw this. They saw these advertisements, both in the club and on social media, that we were running this pilot program, and the results were stunning, right? Like we were increasing reaction time in. Listen, if you're 65 and you want to keep driving for another 20 years, like reaction time is a big deal for you, right?
For sure.
We were able to increase reaction time by 60% in those subjects. We were able to reduce their processing speed, their decision making. We were able to show some significant improvements in executive function. But these were all none of this was academic study. Now we have been fortunate enough to partner with University of Cincinnati, and we're currently working. We've got a location in Indianapolis. We're working with IU on developing another study. We did a study with Miami of Ohio, and a published study in one of the journals, one of the medical journals. I can't tell you exactly what it is, but a journal of aging and something to do with fitness, right? Which is where we want to be. But we're continuing to do these studies. So this all started with this rudimentary, program that we were running, and we're like, there is something to this, right? If you want, it's as simple as this. If you want to keep your brain healthy as you age, the number one thing that you can do is exercise, right?
Yes.
Now, there's a certain kind of exercise that we incorporate, and we call it dual tasking, which is managing a cognitive task while you're doing something physical, right? It's not like multitasking, which they tell us you can't really do, but you can do something physical and then you can do something mental at the same time. So, we've got very simple examples of this, and then inside of our facilities, more complex examples. But if you do that, and you train your brain to do that, you can build new neural pathways, which is the signature of a healthy brain. What makes a healthy brain isn't the number of brain cells that you have. It's the connection between and amongst those brain cells, that where you can form new neural pathways. We talk about neuroplasticity, right? A lot when we talk about brain health. So after running this study and reading more about this, we all looked at each other, the three of us, and we said, there's a business here, right? We could do this. So then we looked back at our previous experience running the franchise fitness center, and we said, what do we really like about that business? And, what don't we like about that business? And it came down to this, that when you're running a franchise fitness center, you're going to have, if you're doing it right, you're going to have two separate businesses. So you're going to have a membership business where people just basically pay you for access to equipment. And then you're going to have people that pay you for coaching, personal training clients, right? And the people who are the most fun to work with, that get the best results, that you have the highest retention with, that pay you the most money, are all the personal training clients. Some of the members get, good results on their own, and that's great. And we're there for them. We want to provide a clean, convenient facility for them, right? But the ones that are the most fun to work with, where you can really move the needle in their lives, those are the ones that are getting coaching from you. So we looked at what we were learning about brain health, and we looked at what we really enjoyed about our last business. And we said, what if we put these two things together? So we developed something that we call Activate Brain and Body. We're up in Montgomery. Been there for about 4 years now. That's our first facility. It's thriving. It's every day I go in there, I'm just amazed. I look around, I just see the people whose lives we're impacting. I see the work that we're doing. I see how energetic and motivated the staff is there, the team is there, and it just gives me the warm and fuzzies, right?
That's awesome.
So it's like what we were talking about before, the things that you're going to do the second time around, like this, it's coming to life. It's alive at Activate Brain and Body, right? So then we opened a second location in Indianapolis. We're continuing to refine our business model. And at some point, we hope to scale this at least regionally into about 10 locations.
That's awesome.
That's cool. That's great context too, for everything that you're saying. You get to kind of do it over and fix all the things that you want to fix this time around. What I like too is and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're the only one that's doing this. Like, this is new. This isn't, it's been done in science, but it's never been done in a gym setting to where you have something where you're offering a service that allows regular people like me to be able to do this.
Yeah, we are. We're the first. Now that, there's an interesting chemical in the brain. You'll see where I'm going with this. It's called brain-derived neurotropic factor, right? And this is like the key to brain health, BDNF, right? And when you learn about exercise, the impact that it has on the brain, this is one of the key components. Like, you want to stimulate more production of BDNF, right, in your brain, and then you want to push your brain. You want to, challenge your brain with novel physical movements, problem solving, pattern recognition. Well, when I first started this business, I set a Google alert for news stories about BDNF, and like once a week, I would see something pop up. Now I have to turn it off. I had to turn it off because I get emails like 6 times a day now. There's an article someplace, in the world about BDNF and the impact of it, right? So we were the only people that were doing this at one point. Now we're starting to see other people do it, right? And as a business person, your first reaction is, competition. But the second part of it is, it's going to push the whole industry forward, right?
That's
it's
exactly right.
It's going to be wonderful, right? But yeah, we were the first, and at this point, we're the best.
There we go.
That's awesome.
There we go. Rags, on the discussion around perseverance, what you learned, and part of the Tom Brady story you mentioned earlier, where I have a whole team of Tom Brady's, that was in the military?
Well, actually,
with your team now?
Military and my team now.
Okay.
Like, I noticed one thing I do really well is I seem to attract high-performing individuals. It was in the military I noticed this, and then I noticed it when I was doing the startup. I started in DAP, and it was the best performer in DAP was my first partner in all this. And then every person that's worked on my team, they were exponentially better at what they did than everybody. And like the guy that went on to go and do other things. I mean, he's a successful entrepreneur, and I think he's on a second one that he's closing. So, I mean, he was in Forbes. You know, he was #1 in Forbes for marketing. So I started seeing these trends. I'm like, I have a knack, and I don't think it's because I'm this high intelligence, or I just have a very clear vision, and it's always been sticky. People seem to like getting involved with whatever it is that I'm doing. So I've taken that and put it into business. And
Was that always the case? Did you experience that in middle school, high school?
Yeah, like
I
was excited about rock climbing in high school, and that was before the rock climbing craze. You were a weirdo if you were doing that kind of stuff, or some risk taker. And so people would follow me into that. And then, just in the military, my workout styles, people would, then at one point I had 30 people that I was, we were doing this program, before work, and then started doing Ironman. And then other people started to get involved with that. So it just, I have
it's called a visionary. You have a gift for being a visionary.
And plus my personality, it's kind of, when I'm into something, it's very intense, and I go at it all out. And then I think people see that, they're like, what's this guy doing? I want to be a part of that. So it's worked out well for me.
How have you carried that, the word perseverance, through your journey of building bailout systems? Have there been high highs and low lows, and how do you keep yourself down the center of the fairway on those topics?
It's hands down the hardest thing I've ever done. And so what happened with me is, like, throughout the military and all the way up to the time where I started going to DAP, it seemed like my life was on this trajectory where everything I touched seemed to work. And it was things in my wheelhouse. And so when I first started Bailout, I literally said, I want to create the impossible. In other words, I don't want to have a gym. I want to have a gym that does something that nobody else does, that hasn't even been invented yet. So that's what attracted me to creating a technology where firefighters could jump out of a window hands-free. They could be unconscious. You could throw them out of the window and they would simply lower to the ground. And I remember when I was in DAP, I went across the street to the physics department and talked to a physics professor there. And he said, yeah, it's not really mathematically possible to do it at the scale you're talking. Because I said, I want a 3-inch device that would have rope that you could clip and jump. And he said, that's not possible, at least strictly using the technology you're talking about using. So fast forward, 7 years later, we finally get a prototype where we're jumping off cliffs at Red River Gorge on a regular basis, and it's working, So that taught me that you can, and actually before that, I think the Ironman, that taught me the most about perseverance. And I always look back on the lessons that taught me. I thought when I did the Ironman, I was going to get up the next morning and feel like, oh man, I'm finally worth something. Everybody's going to be excited about the fact that I did an Ironman, and none of that was true. That night, it was awesome. I crossed the finish line. I did what I said I was going to do. I trained for a year and a half, but the next morning I woke up depressed, and I thought, like, well, if I did this, it's not that big of a deal, and nobody really cares. And I didn't get that sense of satisfaction of the goal that I achieved that I thought I would. And I remember Tony Robbins saying that this would happen. It always happens. People who are high performers, you get one goal and it's on to the next. But he said the joy comes from the process, who you became in the process of achieving the goal. The goal, you get one night of happiness, and then it's back to the grind. And so I learned that it doesn't matter what goal I achieve in my life, it's never going to make me happy. What makes me happy is the process. And I think that's why, to John's point, it's so important that as you do these processes, you're with people you actually enjoy being around. Because I hate to say it, but it's the journey that means everything. One day I will be very successful and bail out, just as I've been successful in other things. But the real thing is did I like and enjoy the process? So for me, it's not about grind. It's not about perseverance. It's every day I am becoming a better person. I'm better now than I was 10 years ago. And I'm sure, John, it's the same thing. You look back on the not the include fitness days, but the 24-hour fitness days. You look back and you're like, oh man, I was this or I was this. And now you look at yourself and you're like, oh my God, I'm a new person.
How did I even get through that the way I was?
Right. And you're thinking like, when I look in the mirror, I'm proud of the person I became. That's what I'll take into what I'm doing. And that's why it means success is so fleeting. But the person that you become, that's what you take away. So for me, I'm already successful. I'm a better person. That was the goal.
Yeah.
And that's one of our values as a team, growth. I don't care if you can do the work better. I don't care if you're a Tom Brady. What I care about is, are you willing to put in the work and grow and be a better version of yourself than you are when you started my company? And that's where I get into the personal. Like I care. To me, it's not just a tagline. I care about the growth of individuals, and that's why I have the hard conversations. So it's not all kumbaya and are you happy today? Can I get you a beanbag or a lunch? Or those are nice, but to me, real leadership is having those hard conversations. Like, hey, this is where you're heading. This is what you want. How are you getting there? How are we working on this? How are we developing ourselves? What are you reading? Are you taking time off to care for yourself? I mean, I think that's putting into practice what we say when we say we really care about our people.
Right. Yeah. Amen to that. Amen to that. John, what did you learn going from one Anytime Fitness franchise to 15 and then to 23?
Yeah.
What did you learn through that journey? What got easier? What got harder in the complexity as your business scaled?
The skills that get you from to one location being successful are completely different than the skill set you need to go from 5 to 10 locations. And then once you have 10, the skill set you need to go from 10 to 20, completely different, right?
In yourself or in your team or both?
Both, right? There's a few different ways that I can unpack this. So what happened to me, and I've heard it from a lot of people that have scaled similar type businesses, is that you love fitness when you first start this. Maybe you run a restaurant business and you love the restaurant business. You're a chef. It doesn't matter. Maybe you're in design. You're building a clothing brand, right? What ends up happening is you move out of that business and then into the staffing business, into the people development business, right? So when I first got into our first fitness location, every day was all about fitness. It's like sitting down with people and talking about how to change and improve their lives through implementing, fitness the right way, right? And then after you hit about five locations, it changes, and then you are talking how do we recruit the best people? How do we find the best people, and how do we keep them here? And like really up until the day that we sold our company, the majority of my brain power and my two closest cohorts in that business, it was retention. How do we improve the working conditions of these guys? How do we give them more opportunities for fulfillment? How do we make sure that when they leave here and ultimately go on to the next thing, that they're going to be better people and more prepared? Spent more time, more mental energy on that, right? And then as you go from like 10 locations to 15 to 20 locations, you're developing this layer of middle management, right? And honestly, that was great. That was fun. I learned a lot in that process. But I look at it now, and I was honestly probably having more fun and making more money when we had like 5 to 8 locations where there was no middle management. It was us, right? We were managing the managers. And then you start managing the managers of the managers, right? And those people, they need significant compensation, right? So a lot of money goes out to developing that whole middle management thing. And that's a whole different set of skills.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're dealing with a different kind of higher level person, you know, and what motivates them is completely different than what motivates a, 24-year-old personal trainer, right? So you got to constantly, work on yourself. And one of the things that you notice is, I'm sure I've seen where people start to look like their pets or their pets start to look like them. I found the same thing with your business, right? Your business is it's an expression of your personality, right? If you are a no nonsense, cut straight to the point kind of person, that's what your business will start to look like over time. I'm a little bit of a guy who likes to have fun. Sometimes we do silly things, right? Sometimes people have chosen not to work at our location or our business because, our personalities weren't a fit. For instance, working out is a grind, right? And, you talked about it with consistency in business and, the perseverance. If you're going to make meaningful changes, it's not about how hard you work out one day. It's about showing up every day.
Every day.
Yeah.
And if I'm coaching somebody on, how do I get in shape? First thing I'm going to say is like, find something and find a location that's convenient to you. Find something you like to do where you're just going to show up 2 or 3 times a week in the beginning, right? Just consistently, because it's very easy to turn up the intensity dial, right? But the consistency dial is very hard to change, right? So you set it up in a way where you're just gonna show up every single day, and over time, what ends up happening. What was the point I was making? I was going back to
and what I love is the saying I always say: "What got me here won't get me there." And I live by that. And that's why I'm always growing. And that's why my team, I'm always telling them they got to grow, because what you're doing to get that first successful business is not the same thing you're doing to get the 10, 15, and then ultimately sell a company. So you had to constantly grow. And the other thing I wanted to say is I noticed he said, how do we retain people? How do we make this a good working? Notice it wasn't about him. And I think that's the great thing of a leader is notice that it shifted from how do I get more? How do I get to how do I make my team feel, like this is a place that's worthwhile? How do I get them gains? How do I get them more time, more money? And that's why John's a great example of a leader and why he has the success he does, I think.
I think you touched on it too with the perseverance, right? So that goes back to the very first question you asked. Like, you got to enjoy it every single day, right? And a big part of that is working with people that I was going to say about the silliness, working out is a grind, right? So you got to make it fun. And if you're owning the business and people are coming in here, sometimes you just got to do silly stuff. Right. So we would put on these, rock and roll party days, and we would ask our staff members to, be a little bit silly. This goes back to what I was saying about how your business becomes an expression of what your personality is. And I like to have fun. I'm a little bit silly from time to time. So, our clients would show up, our members would show up, we're dressed like, we're going to we're on stage at a rock show or something like that. Right. And, you get somebody who's got a master's degree in kinesiology, and they show up and there's a job interview, and you say to them, hey, from time to time, we're going to ask you to step outside the box here. And because we owe it to these clients to make this journey fun.
Yeah.
So from time to time, we're going to be a little bit silly. We're going to do something. We're going to have some kind of a party. We're going to break up the monotony of the workout, right? But that's very much my personality. And believe it or not, some people chose not to work for our organization because of that, right?
Sure.
But you got to own that. You got to own who you are, right?
This is who we are. I think you learn more about who you are through those experiences, because you start hearing people voice that this isn't a good fit for me. And you're like, well, what isn't a good fit? Well, I literally have had 2 employees in my lifespan of leadership say, like, you guys just care a little too much for people. And I was like, man, thank you for saying that, because you're right. We do. We care too much for people.
Right.
And we make decisions based on caring too much for people. And that's who we are.
And if that's the reason we go down, if that's the reason we don't make it,
right?
I can live with
we've
that.
said it.
Yeah.
We've said it as a family business. We've said, like, if that's our Achilles heel of the reasons why, quote unquote, we didn't do A, B, and C. And if tomorrow you flip the light switch off on everything that I'm doing every day, and I've been doing for 26 years, I believe it's been absolutely worth it.
Yeah.
And so you get those challenges of like, well, you're having too much energy here. There's, I want to focus on my science but to your point, but our business runs off helping our customers feel excited to show up. Right. And you're only going to scale and pay for the middle management if you attract more customers who are like, this gym actually, it gets me excited to show up. Right. Because as you were sharing about adding that middle management, I've been through that experience with scaling. The only way you can do that is the organization has to grow. Right. Because then otherwise you can't afford it. And if you can't afford it that could be one of the reasons why you go down. Right. So you got to grow and so you got to keep attracting all the people like, you know what? I want to work for a gym that's not stale. I want to work for a gym and a leadership that like brings fun into the environment because working out every day is a grind. Right. And so I love the thought nature of those who are listening that are thinking about like, what are the values that we're willing to go down saying this was worth it? Right. This is what we do because we love doing it. We know it makes a difference. And to be frank, you have to enjoy the work you do.
Right.
And if you don't, and you feel like, I don't even enjoy this, well, then you need to question what you're doing.
Exactly.
Right.
And I get asked, like, how do you attract the people that you do? Like people who are getting started in startups, they'll say, how do you find these people? Well, I think the biggest thing is be authentic.
Yeah.
Like you said, if caring about the people is your part of your model, live and die by that, because what you'll do is you'll attract those people who are like, you know what, I agree with that. And the people who don't, they'll either quit or they'll fall off or whatever. But I don't know. I mean, Oprah, she said that was her biggest strong point. She was authentic. She wasn't like all the other talk show hosts. And she said had I been more authentic earlier on, she's like, God only knows where I'd be. And that's Oprah.
Sure.
So authenticity, I don't think we focus on that as much, but that's how you find out who are the right people and who aren't, in my mind.
Yeah.
You touched on the profitability part too, right? That's one of our core values. And this has been one of the reasons why people didn't work out in our organization in the past too. So when we started Activate, front and center, one of our core values is the understanding that we need to be profitable every day.
Yes.
Right. Because we want to change the way that people look at this connection between exercise and brain health. That's our mission statement is to preach and to evangelize this connection between exercise and brain health, right? But so we want to make this change. We want to make this change in our industry and in society and get people to understand that. No great change has ever happened on our planet that didn't involve making money, right? Having
exactly.
Resources.
Right? It absolutely
people like to
resources,
undercut that,
right? And so every day we have to perform the services that we do in a way that we end up with a little bit more money than we started, right? And if you can't get on board with that, right? If you can't get on board that this is a for-profit business because we want to make change and those changes take resources, right? Probably not going to be a good fit here.
Yeah.
And that's okay too. I would encourage you to go work, someplace where you're a better fit. But you know what you're going to find there? They need money too to make changes.
Yeah.
People eventually come to learn that.
Yeah. Well, but it takes lessons learned to experience it, because you look at the end of the year and go, was everything we did and the hard work we put in, are we more sustainable now than we were? And if the answer is, and we all three know from a startup perspective, there are years you go burning more than you're making.
Exactly.
Right. But the end goal has to be in mind. I would say even in our journey, like we were over investing for a reason and we knew it. And every year we've been over investing. And about 2 years ago, we finally had this shift happen that the over investment was now paying for itself.
I love that.
And it's going to take a few years to dig out of the over investment. But it's the long game. We weren't doing this for a short period. We're doing this to transform the way the world thinks about and activates leadership. right? And the way it shows up differently. And we want the word unconventional, which I always say, big part of the definition of unconventional is being intentional.
Yes.
And leaders just don't move with intention. They move in robotic state in most cases, but not the ones who listen to this podcast,
Right.
not the one who engage in our brand. The people who engage in our brand know we're doing things. We want to just do them even better. We want to activate our team even better. And that takes resources for us to deploy everything we do in an unconventional way. It takes resources. We're always looking, okay, how do we blow the minds of the customer? Because we want to blow the minds of the employees that are going to be experiencing what we're delivering. And it takes resources. So don't be afraid to make the ask and to grow your business financially as well.
Absolutely.
Well, what I love about that overinvestment is the fact that that is unconventional, and because it doesn't look good on paper initially. People are like, well, no, that mathematically that doesn't work. But what they're not seeing is the compound effect of that investment in your people that are going to eventually do better work, and they're growing into that space.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, you just define your whole podcast, and that statement there is that you're over investing, and that's unconventional.
Yeah, I think there will be many entrepreneurs who listen to this episode. And one of the things that you just shared that like, ooh, that's a interesting learning point is when you're looking for outside investors and when you're making personal investments, the long game, are you in it for the right reasons? Because the right reasons takes the long game.
Yes.
Right? This is not a financial game. Anything worth building takes purpose and conviction. And if we were in it just to build a business and sell, which is unfortunately, I think it's a really false prophecy in the whole startup entrepreneurship world.
Yeah.
Why do we even talk about that? To be frank, why do we even celebrate that?
Right.
Because that's not what you want. The people who are getting real investment from real investors or making those, our bank made a big shift up in terms of the investment they were making into us this year because we've been in it for the long game. Right. And the long game takes an early investment and takes you figuring out your model. What we're doing today is not what we even intended to do originally from a how to, but why we're doing what we're doing today has never changed. Right. So like we're in the process of standing down this digital platform that we spent $700,000-800,000 building. Why? Because our clients need something else. And our clients were telling us that 4.5 years ago. We were just trying to build this thing. And it's like, you know what? It's okay because guess what? A lot of the tools we built, a lot of the knowledge we gained, a lot of the mistakes and things we learned, a lot of the data we collected all happened because of that digital platform. That doesn't mean it was a failure. In fact, I'm carrying so much of that forward with us and how we're deploying with teams intentionally and in person. And we have clients. We just had a client out in Los Angeles who chose Talent Magnet Institute for a project. And they said one of the reasons why, one, your unconventional value really stands out in everything you deployed for us. Everything you showed us, we were like, I've never seen that before. The other is you didn't push this digital subscription. Every company in your space pushes a digital subscription.
Yeah.
And we don't need another digital subscription, right?
That's right.
And you guys get it. And we're like, yeah, because we've been listening. We've been listening to our customers. They don't need something else, technology. Human to human contact wins every day.
Yeah, I think so.
And we need more of that. So that journey that entrepreneurs hear and the scripts that you see and the experience, the three of us have lived the ups and downs, right? We've lived through the turmoil. We've lived through the scary nights of like, I don't know how we're going to turn the lights on next week. And then somehow, because of ordained blessing, the lights turned on next week. And a lot of that's our people that we surrounded ourselves with, both on our team and externally, and this innate belief and prayer that we've been pitching up to the good Lord above that like, he's here, right? He's protecting us. There's been times it's like, I don't know how we're going to do this. And all of a sudden you're like, did anybody just notice what just happened in the last 60 days? Like anyway, that grind is worth it if you're in it for the right reasons.
That's right.
You got to be in it for the right reasons. Is your team working together or just working in silos? When collaboration breaks down, everything suffers. Talent Magnet Institute offers powerful training and team building facilitation on critical topics such as breaking down silos, building trust, deeper cross-functional relationships, change management, and creating truly high-performing cultures. Our expert facilitators design interactive experiences that transform how your people work together. As a client recently shared, TMI provided exactly what we need: fresh ideas, engagement, and motivation. We walked away stronger, more aligned, and ready to tackle the year ahead with renewed confidence. From change management to intentional culture building, we'll help your team become more than the sum of its parts. Visit talentmagnet.com to discuss your team's needs today. Do you two have, like, in knowing your journeys, knowing that, you know, and modality, I think I also want to ask modality, because there's probably people listening that are like, tell me more about bailout systems. What are the modalities that your tools get utilized in? What are the things that you learned from your own life experiences? You said you were a rock climber early. Did you learn anything from that experience that gives you this passion of protecting people?
Yeah, well, that's funny you bring that up, because I just remembered a lot of the backstory behind this. At age 19, I fell 100 feet off a cliff face rock climbing at Red River Gorge. So, which is funny because when I first started this, my
it's
two
not
buddies.
Funny. It's actually like,
what's funny
go
is
ahead, tell us
when
what's
I
funny
would
about
pitch
it.
to investors, I wouldn't bring that up, and my buddies were like, "Wait, you don't think that's relevant?" I was like, "Well, it's not about me; it's about the firefighters." But honestly, that's what got me into this, is because I know what it was like. I spent 2-3 months in a hospital. I had to learn to walk again.
Wow.
And I was in a coma for 3 days. And so when I heard the audio version of the New York firefighters, I have that, and it's literally the live audio on that day of those guys jumping out of the building and the guy calling in for help. So that kind of hit me in a way that maybe wouldn't have hit someone else. But that was the lesson. And then after that accident, I didn't quit rock climbing. I went in full on. And I forced myself for 3 months after that accident. I would go down to Red River Gorge just sick to my stomach, thinking, am I going to die today? Is this going to be the day? You know, because that day that I went and fell, I didn't think I was going to fall that day. I didn't think I was going to end up in a hospital. I'm invincible. And I learned that I wasn't. And so through forcing myself to do that over the years, and then I became a Navy diver, I chose dangerous professions. I skydive.
What is a Navy diver, real quick?
A Navy diver. So the Navy trains divers to go under the water rather than taking a boat out of the water or a sub out of the water. We go under the water and we fix things while the boat is in the water, because it costs a lot of money to take those things out of the water. They're meant to be in the water. Okay. So most of Navy diving, I worked most of my career with EOD, explosives ordnance disposal. So again, high risk. So there's a trend in my life. I'm attracted to high risk things. And my goal after that accident was, I always found myself assessing risk. I'm very good at finding out what the risk is and what the risk isn't. A lot of people think skydiving's dangerous. It's not. What's dangerous is riding your bike around the island of Hawaii on a Sunday for 6 hours. The car's going by, but people would see my posts on Facebook like, man, you're crazy. You're jumping out of planes, but wouldn't say anything about me riding a bicycle where you're unprotected. If a car hits you, you're probably dead. Matter of fact, I don't know any friend of mine who's done Ironman, ridden bikes, who hasn't been hit by a car. So risk assessment, what's more dangerous, skydiving or riding a bike? Riding a bike. But so I've had this knack over the years and same thing with startup. Like, to me, it wasn't that risky. I mean, it has its risk, but you can compartmentalize those risks and you can do things that make it less risky. So that's what I've done in my entire life. And that's what, the product is. The product is a way where you can safely egress from a space, or you can use it to lower an object from a drone or whatever. But that's why
in different modalities. You've mentioned fire. I assume rock climbing.
Yep.
I assume people who might be anchored to a building, rappelling off a building for whatever reason. Right. Are there others? Like, what about arborists?
Yeah, matter of fact, that's the one we're going into now. We discovered that the technology naturally cushions the blow of a tree limb when it's being cut. Me and Alex, we have no arbor experience, and there's a famous arborist who he allowed me and Alex to rig the tree while he's in it. It's his life on the line if the device messes up, and we downed a whole tree. And that's a testament to what the technology, if it's done right, it allows people, to do things more safe.
And is it commercialized? Where are you in that process?
Not yet. We're trying to raise funds to get to the next step. We're ready to do a pre-production unit to go to manufacturing, and we have a big industry player who, when we get this pre-production unit, we're going to take it to, and they may want to partner with us to take it to market because they're known in the industry. So
awesome.
It speeds that up.
Yeah, you think of all of these areas where it's like life and death situations. So I can't think of anyone who wouldn't want bailout systems on their side.
Yeah,
if you're
got to get it to them,
right? So the three of us are in a group of entrepreneur men who are trying to put faith, family, and work in the center of the table and not separate those. And we're learning from each other, and we're together on a regular basis. We're doing life together. We're in community. What have you two learned about that experience, and how, looking back when you didn't have it, comparing to now when you do have it, or when you've had it over seasons of your career, how does it make a difference? What would be our call to action for those listening who may not be in a community where they're surrounded by others to learn and grow from?
The biggest thing I've taken away from it is you're not alone, right? There are other people with similar values. You can find your people, right? Not alone. Like when we have our meetings, I always leave there with the same feeling. Like I can't even believe some of the men that we've met in this on this journey are just, I can't even believe they're real. Like they're just out there, like living the way that God intended us to live, right? They're spending time, asking questions of other good men. How do I be a better husband? How do I be a better man? How do I be a better business person? How do I run my business, in a more ethical way, right? How do I run it in a more profitable way that aligns with those ethics, right? And it's inspiring just finding those guys and just your crew, your tribe, and just realizing that you're not alone. For me.
John says something I'll never forget. Now, you probably forgot that you said it. You said in one of our meetings, you said the reason why most businesses fail is the CEO becomes isolated.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that, because what happened with me is the grind. I grinded for so long and so hard. I woke up one day and I was alone. All my friends, I hadn't spent time with them. I alienated myself from everybody. Every day I woke up, it was bailout. From sun up to sundown, I did that for probably 7 years, just nonstop. And I found myself alone. And when I joined that group, I realized, like, I'm not alone. Like, these guys are all going through the same thing. And I now make a point. I don't do that anymore. I will not isolate myself. And anybody that's starting this or wants to be a leader, wants to get into entrepreneurship, I think they need to keep that as a mantra. What you said is if you isolate yourself, there's a good chance that you're not going to get to where you want to go, because great things are built in teams.
Yeah.
You're not going to build something great on your own.
Yeah. It's been I shared this morning prior to coming to the studio. There's a business problem I've been dreaming of solving for 17 to 20 years of my career. And in our group, I shared this thing that I've been working on. And one of the guys in the group said, Sipple, I've never heard you state this particular thing so clearly. Now I know exactly who you need to meet. And I got connected to a lady who's overseas, and we have this meeting, and it's like, this individual could actually solve the business problem I've been thinking about for 20 years. Like, it's a state of like, this could change the trajectory. And, and it's like, having individuals who have been there before, who, like, to them, it was very obvious. Well, if you're stating that, you just need to have this discussion.
Yeah.
And I would say that experiencing that not just in business problems, but in marital and family and relational and financial and spiritual challenges of like, well, here's what I did when I did that. I spent the next 35 days praying every day and asking boldly for what I needed. And somehow that worked. Surprise, right? I got more bold in my prayers and my requests. I got more thoughtful about the time I spend. I stopped working so damn much on all the things that I thought I needed to do. And I spent time with my friends, right? And I broke out of the grind and gave myself some relief of like, man, I just needed to sit down and have a tequila margarita and some great authentic Mexican food together, you know? There's something about community that really matters. And unfortunately, that's another thing that I think is unconventional. Like there are people trying to do it on their own, and you don't need to be doing this on your own. It's a myth. Think about the knowledge of what we're all gaining by sitting with John Spence, Michael Ragsdale, talking about entrepreneurship and faith and failure and challenges and growth and financials and things that I'm still learning. You know, I joke like the first 2 years, last year felt like 2017 to me. And 2017 was one of our most profitable years. Last year felt that way again.
Nice.
And you know what? If there were a lot of struggles last year, I had struggles emotionally. I had struggles personally with health. I had struggles in our business, and I would hit the absolute reset button if I knew. Now, the cheat code is I know the outcome. So the outcome at all, you know, where we are now,
right.
But I would do it over again. And there were some I've said that to a few of even my team members, and they're like, we went through a lot last year and we achieved a lot. We got so much out of those mistakes and stubbing our toes. And we also personally, everybody went through a lot, but look at what we learned from it. Right. And you learn that when you're with other entrepreneurs and men that you enjoy, and women and in those listening, women that you're enjoying in your communities. And so get a community, figure it out. We're in one together here. We're happy to share more with you. Shout out to all of the fellas in that group and all that you do. Shout out to Luke Dooley for pulling your community together and supporting us. So we have one last question we like to ask every guest we have in the studio. How do you define unconventional leadership? Michael, I'll start with you.
Unconventional leadership, I think, well, I'll just use myself as an example. Even the military, and I think this is probably the most unconventional, is in the military, I never gave orders. I went to the rank of E8, which is a senior chief, petty officer in the Navy. The only higher rank is E9. But I made a point to never give orders. I worked with people. What I would do is I would ask them what they needed. How can I help your career? And how can your career fit into my mission? So it was a two-way street. And I first found out what they need. And when people understand that you care about what they need, they're more likely to care about what you need. And it's not a bargain. I was very upfront. I said, listen, I want to know what you want, where you want to go, and what you need. And as a result, I never had to ask them to do something that they didn't want to do. I played to their strengths. Some people said, I don't want to be a chief. I don't want to advance, but I like doing maintenance. So I said, well, can you be in charge of it? They said, absolutely. But I never asked them to do anything outside of that. Other people said, I want to be a chief. Like, are you willing to put in the work? And I would create opportunities for them to be a chief. And when I needed something done, I was like, hey, chief, this is what I need done. Can you do it? So I always had it to where I didn't have to pull people along. I was playing to what they already wanted. And to me, that's made all the difference. And I actually took that into the startup world. That's why I track people who already love doing what I need them to do. Alex, our engineer, our new engineer, he loves testing. The other engineers didn't like testing. He loves it. You know, it's something he would almost do for free. He loves the data. So I don't have to push people to do things. I'm already getting people who love doing what I need. And I think you could take that anywhere. You don't teach people to do things. Find people that already know and love doing that. So
excellent.
That's real. There's a lot of parallels between what you said and my in my answer to unconventional leadership, because it would be, for me, it's about putting myself in the shoes of that team member, right?
Yeah.
And asking, what's going to improve their life long term, right? There's this old maximum in customer service that what happens if you train people really well and then they leave, right? Is that better than if you never train them and then they stay, right? So you got to ask yourself. I'm thinking of a young guy that works for me. His name is Luke, and he's just everything that we would want out of a team member. But my business partners and I will sit in a room together and we'll ask ourselves, what do we think Luke wants to be in his life in 5 years, 10 years, and how can we help him get there, right? And if he leaves us, great. He had a positive impact. One of my commitments to everybody that works inside of an organization that I'm a part of is, when you leave here, like it or not, you're going to be better than you are now in some way, shape, or form. And I owe it to you. So instead, to the unconventional part is, I'm not thinking about the organization, right? I'm not thinking about John Spence. I'm thinking about in this situation, I'm thinking about Luke, right? How do we make sure if Luke moves on, and ultimately everybody's going to move on in some way, shape, or form, right? What skills, what values is he going to take with him when he goes, right? You can start to think about that. It seems a little bit unconventional, but honestly, long term, it's the best thing you can do for your business.
I agree. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, fellas, for being on this episode. Thank you for the energy and the time and the effort, and just the friendship and being authentic in this dialogue. It's going to change and impact our listeners greatly. I want to thank all of you for joining us for this week's episode. I want to thank the Cincinnati Podcast Studio for bringing this content to you. They've been such a great partner, and we hope you're enjoying the dialogue. Submit comments, questions, thoughts. Give us a thumbs up on whatever platform that you're watching this episode or listening to this episode on, and we'll see you in the next conversation.